Call Haloim Yahweh, Bahasham, Hamashiach, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakakwadash, Barakatham, Shalom. This is your fellow servant Tazawar from the GMS Orlando camp, here with another lesson. First, I want to start off by giving all glory, honor, and praise unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, whom rule well, and from whom we learn his truth. Shalom to Yakim, who are not in GMS, but are pushing likewise doctrine in spirit and in truth with all sincerity. To you few sisters that are listening and learning, as well as you speckled birds who are scattered among the nations, looking like those nations, to the 144,000 elect men and the rest of the hopeful elect. To you I say, Shalom. This will be a short lesson, if you will, a short video. And it's going to be about the, regarding the message that the EU put out last week. Slakia. Now, some brothers, a lot of brothers have already done lessons on this. I was waiting to see if anything else was to come out in the news, and it is regarding the EU, right, or the European Union. They're warning to the citizens, to millions, hundreds of millions of citizens inside of the EU, to stockpile and prepare for a large-scale conflict, right? As we know, it's been an ongoing battle in that region between Russia and Ukraine. And we've had America, right, aka Babylon the Great, the Mystery Babylon, right, in the background heading that proxy war, right, with the attempts to weaken Russia's military. But as we discuss often in numerous videos, all they've done effectively is strengthen Russia's military, because now Russia has live, real-world practice, right? So they've been building up the military, trying to regain that strength and status of the USSR, the United Soviet States of Russia, right? That regime, we'll call it. Okay? So with all this fighting, all of this war, actual war, and then you've had, so there's an expression of power they call hard power and soft power. The hard power is the military. Soft power is the expression of diplomatic, being diplomatic, if you will, right? Making deals, willing and dealing, and all of that. So Russia has strengthened themselves in both areas, okay, with their military gaining experience, and also them becoming diplomatic uh, with inside the BRICS conglomerate. Okay, so now they have trade deals with these other nations, and not only are militaries sharing information and technology, but actual trade deal as far as industry and commerce and goods and services. So all of this is serving to build Russia up, right? And the scriptures speak of Russia being a guard unto the smaller nations. Let's see if we can grab that real quick. I don't want to deviate from the point. Right. Yeah, I believe this is Ezekiel 38 and 7. And let's see. Yeah. Right. Because when you go up, let's start at 2. This is Ezekiel 38 and 2. It says, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Right. But when you go to maps and you look at those old world maps, if you look at Gog and Magog, that region, that landmass, that region is in the space of Russia, okay, in the landmass of Russia. And say, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Right? Then dig this. Persia, right? So Persia is Iran today. So you can understand. All right. The Iranians, if you ask an Iranian person who's what they call by today's standards, Iranian by ethnicity, all right, if you ask them what they are, they're going to say, most of the time they'll say, oh, I'm Persian, right? But they're Iranian is how they identify. They identify as Persian. But anyway, you know, that they are an admixture of Elam and Ishmael, biblically speaking. Anyway, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah, of the north quarters, right? So in that northern region of Western Asia, okay? And all his bands and many people with thee. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company, right? Company going into armies that are assembled unto thee, and be a guard, Salakia, and be thou a guard unto them, right? And so that's exactly what Russia has done. So this prophecy has come to fulfillment. Okay. But why does it say at the top, it says, behold, I'm against thee, son Gog and Magog? Because they are Edomites. All right. Now the Lord is going to set this thing up to where Edomites are going to fight Edomites, right? Because the Lord blessed them. Their blessing is the sword, right? So no other nation can take them out of power except them their own selves. It got to be another Edomite nation because their gift is the sword, the art of war. Okay? And we speak on that often at camp. It's a master chess move by the Heavenly Father. Okay, but all this to say what? Conflicts are brewing. All right, conflicts have already been in the works and been playing out in real time. But now, as we've been saying, it's not just going to be an isolated incident. because many people were like, oh, well, that's, some level of detachment there. You had your CP, right? Uh, Salakia, PC conversation, your politically correct talks, right? Of the war and all of this stuff. Well, now you have, who's that? EU, which is attached to NATO, right? Making statements about preparation. Why? Because that isolation of that incident is no longer being Rakata, is no longer being hedged, if you will. Okay? And we told you it's going to work its way over here. It's going to move westward. Okay? It's going to move westward, this conflict. So, the point I was making is you have NATO, which is attached to, or some allegiance to Babylon the Great, right? America is the premier NATO country, if you will. The premier NATO country. It's the country by in which all of the other smaller NATO countries and partners, right, allies, model themselves after. And America has been the trigger man, okay, the big brother, the firepower of NATO for many years now. All right, pushing that democracy ideology throughout the four winds. Okay. Now, let's do this. If you look, this is just a quick Google search. It says the UN stockpile warning. That's all I searched. And you can look at these different, you see I clicked on the news tab up there. And it's like a week ago. The Economic Times, it said World War III on the horizon. Why European nations are preparing for war, right? The LBC, stockpile 72 hours of food amid fears of war. EU warns 450 million citizens. You see that? 450 million citizens. Politico.eu says threat of war and disease means Europeans need 3 days supplies. So not just the threats of war, but disease as well. All right. Now let's look at this clip real quick. All right. And you see it right here. World War III warning. And just a point to mention, the first two world wars, the elder brothers bring this out all the time at camp too. The first two world wars were so-called white on white crime, right? Edomite on Edomite crime. Okay, on a large scale. Okay, you don't hear anybody talking about world wars with all of the warring tribes and countries and factions that Africa had over the course of many decades, right? The political corruption over there. You never heard of anybody calling it a world war when all the Arabs was over there fighting amongst each other, right? It was not considered a world war unless it was so-called white folks. When you had back in the early 1900s, before World War II, right? When you had Japan and China at it, okay? And nobody said that was a world war. All right? Now, if you look at the description here, it reiterates what we saw in those articles. World War III warning: EU tells 450 million people to stockpile as NATO warns Russia, right? So NATO warns Russia about what? So this means NATO's being an antagonist, right? Let's read this caption down here. It says European Union has warned its 450 million citizens, that's a lot of people, to prepare for a potential large-scale conflict, urging them to stockpile essentials for at least 72 hours. This comes after a devastating Russian missile, say it like how to, missile strike on Ukraine's Sumy, killing dozens. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has issued a stark warning. Okay. Russia could launch another major attack on Europe by 2030. And let us tell you, it ain't going to take 5 years for that shit to happen. Okay. And for scale, the European Union has warned 450 million citizens. It's only 330 some odd citizens over here in the U.S. All right. So that's 120 some odd more million people. Potentially. Right? Meanwhile, Russia has fired cruise missiles from a submarine in the Sea of Japan, escalating global tensions. How real is the threat? Will NATO retaliate? Stay tuned for the latest updates on the crisis. Now let's hit this real quick. Right? So I read to you the summary. We don't really have to go through all of this, but
the European Union has issued a stark warning to its 450 million citizens, urging them to prepare for a potential large-scale conflict. According to reports, the bloc has advised people across Europe to stockpile food, water, and other essentials to last at least 72 hours. This comes in the wake of heightened tensions following a deadly Russian missile strike on the Ukrainian city of Sumy, which killed dozens. While it remains unclear if the EU's warning is directly linked to this attack, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has reinforced concerns, stating that Russia could be capable of launching another attack on Europe by 2030. Speaking in Warsaw, Rutte sent a strong message to Moscow saying, and I quote, if anyone miscalculates and thinks they can get away with an attack on Poland or any other ally, they will be met with the full force of NATO. Our response will be devastating. End quote. Meanwhile, EU Commissioner for Crisis Management Hajda Lahbib has also raised concerns, warning that the threats facing Europe are now more complex than ever.
Yo, and that shows the hypocrisy of NATO, right? Is they talking about if Russia touches Poland. Meanwhile, NATO's trying to make Ukraine an official NATO partner, man, an official NATO ally, which is right there on Russia's borders, which is breaking the agreement they had over 50 years ago, man. All right, to steer clear of each other's borders. Right, so that's just some of the hypocrisy, man. But anyway, I'm not going to continue on with the video. Let's grab some scripture. because you all get the gist of what's being said. So now we read that Russia's going to be a guard, and the Lord is stirring them up, right? Through the land of Gog and Magog. And I touched on who the Persians are, right? That's Iran. So stay tuned, because Iran is in one of the original members in BRICS, right? Russia, it was you had Brazil, India, China, and I think Syria. But then shortly after that, Iran found their way in there. It's over 27 countries now inside the BRICS. I'm going to call it union or conglomerate, whatever you want to call it. That faction. Okay. So this is First Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 1. Right? Because we keep telling you that World War III is on the horizon. Okay? And actually World War III will have kicked off and be in process when Yahweh Shai returns. Okay? This is First Thessalonians 5 and 1. You see it at the top. The header right here says the day of the Lord. Verse 1. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief. Right? So we're not in darkness, because why? We've been prophesying this, and our elders and apostles have been prophesying this day for 40 plus years. Okay? Nobody else has given the breakdowns of the prophecies, all right, concerning history, prophecy, all right, prophetic scriptures, as well as scriptures for our learning, going into the law and the symbolism and all those things, ceremonial law and everything else, man. Nobody else has explained and broken these scriptures down to the masses to the extent of our elders and apostles. All right. And this doctrine has not changed for more than 40 years, because they learned from their elders and apostles and have, taken it to the next level, man. Right. And many of you other camps out there came up at some point under the same doctrine, but you sold out. And so as this thing draws nearer, right, more close to coming to a head, people are going to be exposed. Leaders are going to be exposed. And that group that y'all call the Bumalites and, all that slander and stuff that's coming out, people are going to be dealt with. You got to answer for that. And you have to answer for lulling the sheep back to sleep. All right. Much like America is lulling the masses to sleep over here. So EU gave their warning. America ain't said shit. Right? Had it not been for these secondary media outlets, right? You can bet your ass CNN and Fox and all these other more mainstream news outlets would not have covered the topic. They've only done so after secondary news media outlets have covered it and it's spread. So in a sense to kind of cover their ass, they briefly touched on it. But where's the warning for Americans to do the same? Because isn't the EU, isn't that part of NATO? So if the EU engages into a large scale conflict, doesn't it stand to reason that America will be pulled into that conflict? How come we haven't heard anything about Americans doing likewise? Storing at least water. Get water, right? Food. If you can get your hands on some grain, you know, rice, chickpeas, whatever it is. Beans, lentils, right? For 3 days. What that's at? Where's our uh mass PSA announcement? Right? Meanwhile, people are worried about Donald Trump and the DEI shit and the signing of this whole repealing the segregation shit and a bunch of other bullshit that they're using as distractions. Elon Musk selling uh selling what was it? Tesla or X to himself some type of way to AI or some shit like that. Selling one of his companies to AI to try to offload some debt. People worried about that. Right? Hey, not watching that another part of prophecy is about this guy Trump signing that all government entities will be making payments digitally. All right. So if you on SSI, Social Security, you get stamps any kind of way, your tax returns, all that shit finna be digitally done effective September 2025. And all of the main banks, all right, your JP Morgan, your Bank of America, your PNC, Fifth Third, all of them done quietly dumped a lot of their finances and shifted their systems over to blockchain for traceability. Anyway, that's another lesson. But where's the horn, if you will, right? Where's the blowing of the trumpet for America, for the Americans? Right? I read number 3 again. Verse 2. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Right? That likening to a woman in childbirth, labor pains, when that fucking water break and them contractions on set, that shit come out of nowhere, man. And we're hastening these labor pains. It's gonna be painful, but we got to go through it to get to the other side. And you can't stop prophecy. So we're just praying that the Lord put a hedge around us. Let's grab another one. This is Jeremiah 49 and Let me do 14. Salaki. I have heard, it's Jeremiah 49 and 14. I have heard a rumor from the Lord Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent unto the heathen, saying, gather ye together and come against her, and rise up to the battle. For lo, I will make thee small among the heathen, and despised among men. Right? And we see that. When you read up, it's talking about Edom. Right? Verse 13 says, I have sworn by myself, saith the Lord, that Basra shall become a desolation, a reproach, a waste, and a curse, and all the cities thereof shall be perpetual wastes. Now, when you go in and you get this word Basra in the Hebrew, Barazah, right? Basra is H, the Hebrew word H, 1224. And it reads, Basra, sheepfold or fortress, a town in Edom. Where's Edom? Right? Or what's Edom? Edom is associated with the so-called white people. That's their biblical nationality. And icing on the cake says what? B, there's also a town of Basra in Moab, who are the Chinese, which the Lord's going to destroy both of them, man. All right, both. But the desolation shall come unto who? Esau, Edom. All right. How do we know that? Well, let's read on. Verse 15 again, it says, for lo, I will make thee small among the heathen and despised among men. Well, China got over 1 billion motherfuckers, so we know it's not them. Who's the smallest group of people on a global level? Who got the least amount? Who's struggling with birth rates? So-called white folks. If you need another clue, here you go. Thy terribleness hath deceived thee, and the pride of thine heart, O thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock. Who started off in caves? You Caucasians. That holdest the height of the hill, right? Hills going into governments. Mountains and hills are representative of governments in the scriptures. Though thou shouldest make thy nest as high as the eagle, I will bring thee down. Whose mascot is the eagle? Who got the eagle on their coins and their money? The Chinese don't. That's you Edomites. All the way from Greece to Rome to Spain to Britain to French to Germany to America. That's your mascot, the eagle. Right? Though thou shouldest make thy nest as high as the eagle, what does that mean? Who said they went to the moon? Right? You can read this damn near the same identical verbiage in Obadiah. Right? I will bring thee down from thence, saith the Lord, Yahweh. Also, Edom shall be a desolation. Everyone that goeth by it shall be astonished and shall hiss at all the plagues thereof. Right? So, we know that. We know that. And what else is speaking of pride, because it's talking about pride, look at who's in office right now, man. And look at the enchantments that's behind that whole slogan. That acronym. MAGA. Right? MAGA, MAGA. Brothers have went into it. Giving you the breakdown of that, because that's a word of enchantment. when you get into the left side, left hand understanding, right? When you have some understanding, what do they call sorcerers and warlocks and witches? For all you Dungeons and Dragon nerds out there, they call them mages, right? A mage. So these things have real power. Words have power. All right. And the time that they're talking about, make America great again. When was it? When were they great? When they had their foot, when the so-called white man had his foot on the necks of you so-called black and brown people, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, when you niggas was relegated to the low-paying jobs and sundown towns was a thing, right? And they could spray your ass with a water hose or beat you or do whatever they wanted to you, and there was no consequence. Well, we see some of that modern day with the likes of your George Floyds and your Michael Browns and things of that. But when else was America great? I did a lesson not that long ago, last week, matter of fact, on what I believe Trump was doing with the DEI, right? Who was the largest recipient of DEI? White women. Well, when was America? Where was them women at during the time of America's height when they were great? Your ass was barefoot in the kitchen at the stove, probably pregnant, right? And Trump said what? Grab him right by the hoo-ha. He's an old cracker. That's the ideology they want, man. That's that white supremacy stuff. Elon all on stage doing the Nazi salute. He was a child of was raised up in South Africa during apartheid, right? Which is segregation. That's another name for segregation, apartheid. And what did Trump just do that people's talking about? Signing those orders, man. But anyway, not to deviate too far, all of that to say what? Their pride is coming back because this guy is pushing this out in the open. And now you got a lot of these covert racists that was on the low, hating Jake on the low. Now they're emboldened again, just like they were during his first term. I was listening to the Elder Yashawamba video, one of his older videos earlier today when I was at the plantation. This guy, Matt Walsh, got a lot of their talking points, man. Talking about they proud of how he proud of how their country was founded on rape, rob, and murder. And the Native Americans were nothing but some Stone Age savages that was stuck in stuck in the past, basically. That was his talking point. Who were they to claim the land? They wasn't doing nothing with it. That's some proud, prideful shit. This motherfucker said, that's a great thing that they conquered an entire ocean and then came over here and settled and conquered the land. And see, they think they doing you a favor. And just because, you got a couple of them that are smiling in your face, all of that, hey, that does not change how the majority of Edomites feel about you. Now, of course, we have some of our own people that are scattered amongst them as speckled birds who look like Edomites, but they have a total different spirit. This is why building yourself up in the spirit and through the spirit is so important. And you can't judge a book by its cover. You have to discern the spirit. Right? Anyway, back to the point. This last scripture, then I'm going to close it up. I'm deviating from the point. This is Joel 3 and 9. I said all that to say them devils is proud though, right? Joel 3 and 9. And it reads, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. And they doing that now with all these militias that these good old boys is putting together in their towns. Right? Because the military ain't shit no more. America's military, you got too many alphabet gangs in there, man. It's chock full of alphabet gangs. You got fairies and women in there. Ain't too many mighty men in the regular army. Not like it used to be. But Russia, on the other hand, they getting busy, man. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Right? So plowshares and pruning hooks are items of agriculture. Those are agricultural tools. They saying do what? Turn those tools of agriculture into weapons, swords and spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither, cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat. This is Jehoshaphat here, but the Hebrew is Yahweh Shaphat. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. You see that's where the Lord's going to plead, that valley of judgment. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Right, and it should be a great slaughter, man. The scripture tell you that when Yahweh Shai come back, it's gonna be blood up to the horse's bridle. Was the analogy that they gave. Right? So his garment shall be covered in like he tread the winepress. That means from the feet all the way up to his kneecaps. It's gonna be red. Like he was stomping on grapes to make wine. His garment is gonna be drenched. All right. Anyway, said all that to say, all the other nations and their leaders can see what's on the horizon, and they're warning the people. They're blowing their trumpets, but America is not. Still allowing the masses to sleep. Okay, this is why it's going to be so devastating over here. Most people will not be prepared. Hey, but the Lord wanted that way. So anyway, with that, I pray this lesson finds you well. I pray that it was edifying. Stay prayed up until next time. Shalom. Wa abad babal.